Hey guys, Chaps here, and wow, it's been a while since I've recorded audio. Today I wanted to talk about Gridiron. It's the newest mode in Gears 5, and was just introduced this past week with Operation 3. When playing, a few interesting aspects stood out to me, and I also saw a few people who were a bit confused on Reddit. So today, I'll be keeping things fairly objective. Think of this as a beginner's guide to Gridiron. Gridiron is a team-based game type with the traditional 5v5 setup. It's played on traditional versus maps with two key changes. First is the inclusion of a neutral objective, i.e. the flag, and end zones. The second is the weapon placement. We'll hit on both of these points later in the video. A key change to many is the return to a single life mode. Unlike Koth or TDM, your life is now worth much more to the team. You respawn at the start of each round, but if you die, you must wait for the round to end. Unlike other single life modes in Gears, we now also have an objective. This, along with the 2-minute round duration, will drastically reduce camping and make for a much faster paced experience. To win the match, a team must reach 13 points, or be the team with the most points after 12 rounds. Let's take a look at how scoring works. There are 3 key ways to gain points. The most common way is simply an elimination. If everybody on the opposing team is dead, then your team will be awarded 2 points for the round. The next most common way to earn points is via a touchdown. If the player holding the flag stands in the opponent's end zone for 5 seconds, a touchdown is scored and the team is awarded 2 points. The final way to score a point is in overtime. As I mentioned earlier, each round is only 2 minutes long. If neither team has been eliminated or scored a touchdown by this point, overtime begins. In overtime, the first team to touch the flag will gain 1 point. Usually when the 2 minutes is up, the flag is already being held by someone, so naturally they're the first ones to touch it, and they get the point instantly. Occasionally, neither team has possession though, so in this case it will become a fight to see who can touch it first. Anytime a point is scored, be it by elimination, touchdown, or an overtime point, the round ends. Let's turn now to the scoreboard. The Gridiron scoreboard features some new aspects that we've never seen before. Let's start from the bottom and work our way up. At the bottom, it clearly says that it requires 13 points to win. Right above that, you'll see that the match is split into 4 quarters, labeled Q1 through Q4. Each of these quarters is then split into 3 rounds. As each round is completed, the scoreboard will update with the COG and Swarm scores. The total will then be shown on the far right. Above each of the rounds, you can see the round number, and the current round is highlighted. Over top of rounds 4, 7, and 10, you'll notice a few icons. In each of these rounds, you'll see the symbol of 2 rotating arrows. This indicates that player spawns have swapped. This is different than a traditional mode where the spawns are swapped after each round. Round 7 has an additional element in its icon showing a weapon. This indicates that weapons are changing. Speaking of which, let's discuss some of these mechanics. I mentioned that weapon swaps happen in round 7. It's important to note that Gridiron features different weapon spawns than other modes. TC reevaluated the weapon selection in order to provide the best experience possible for Gridiron. In order to add some variety to the mode, some, if not all, of the weapons will change up after round 6. Downs are another aspect that play differently than what many people are used to. We all know about execution rules, where you can tap A to get up, and enemies can't shoot to kill a downed enemy from a distance. Well, without explosives or something. And of course we all know about Warzone rules, where you bleed out if you're down for too long, and basically anything can kill a downed person from a distance. In recent games, a mixed rule set was introduced. This allows players to still tap A to get up, like execution, but it also allows opponents to shoot you from a distance, like Warzone. The rule set used by Gridiron more closely resembles that of the mixed set. The primary difference though is the damage drop-off. Most weapons have a natural damage drop-off, where the further away you are, the less damage you do. But Gridiron, like Escalation, has an additional layer to this. Downed players take significantly less damage as you get further away. Here you can see a side-by-side of what shooting a downed player looks like in Warzone, TDM, Koth, and other modes. As you can see, the number of bullets it takes to kill doesn't really change with distance. Now here you can see the same thing, but with Escalation and Gridiron rules in place. Notice how many more shots it takes at a distance. This allows enemies to still shoot downed people to kill them, as long as they have enough time, accuracy, and ammo. But it also allows players to tap A to get up if they're really far away, or if they're able to crawl behind cover. Probably the most noticeable new mechanic in Gridiron, though, is the flag. The flag will always spawn in one of 3 designated spots along the center line. Each round, the flag will change its starting position, which provides 2 benefits. To start with, it helps to ensure that all parts of the map are played. It kinda sucks being in some modes where certain sides of the map are left relatively untouched. The second benefit, which is very similar, is that it adds variety to keep things from getting stale, and it allows for a greater variety of strats and initials. So we've talked about where the flag spawns and where to bring it for a touchdown, but how do you interact with it? Unlike some games, carrying the flag adds no restrictions to you. You can still move as normal, interact with cover as normal, and you can still shoot as normal. You now just have a big glowing flag sticking off of your back. When you first pick up the flag, enemies will get a marker that allows them to easily track you. If you're the one with the flag, you get a little indicator like this to tell you that. But don't worry, this wears off after a little bit, they can't see you the whole time. Don't forget though, you're now much easier to see, even when you're in cover, due to the fact that the flag is sticking out of your back. In Gridiron, there's no way to interact with the flag other than by simply touching it. Picking it up is as simple as running over top of it. There's no ability to drop it unless you're downed or killed, and there's no way to trade it off to a teammate. Now that we know the basics of the mode, let's briefly chat about how a match will play out. Gridiron is a single-life, objective-based mode. This is similar to modes in many esports, such as Counter-Strike or Call of Duty, and other sports such as paintball. To players new to this game type, the meta can be a bit confusing. Is it an objective-based game type, or is it an elimination game type? Well, typically each round starts as an elimination mode, and then depending on the circumstances, it may remain in elimination mode, or it may change to be more CTF oriented. If you're able to grab the flag at the start, that's great, but don't risk your life for it. Remember, your life is worth much more than the flag at this point. If you do manage to get it, cycle back, resist the urge to capture right away. Cycle back to your team, recover, and set up for map control. As I said earlier, the most common way for a match to end is via elimination. Just gain map control and treat it like you would a Warzone match. As time approaches the 1 minute mark, things will really depend on your situation. It becomes a question of what's the score, who has better map control, and who has more players alive. By the way, if you're ever unsure of who has the flag or how many people are alive, just look at the top of your screen. If the enemy team has the flag, it becomes a question of how are you going to force them to drop it. If your team has the flag, it becomes a question of, should we play it safe, hold on to it, and just get the 1 point? Or do we have enough control to get that touchdown? A lot of this may seem pretty obvious, and it probably is if you step back and think about it. Unfortunately, under pressure in the middle of a match, you need to make quick decisions. Or maybe you're playing with some randoms who aren't communicating. This can lead to rash decisions that may not have been the best in hindsight. I'm also just going to note here, I'm certainly not claiming to be an amazing Gridiron player. These are just observations that I've made about what seems to work best, combined with some logical thinking about what would be most effective. Before we wrap up here, I just want to hit on a couple of clarifying rules. Something nice that was added is this little indicator at the top. It warns you when one team is capable of winning the match during this round. Sometimes it's obvious. If a team has 11 or 12 points, you certainly don't want them to score. But let's circle back to something I said earlier. You win by reaching 13 points, or by having the most points at the end of 12 rounds. The last part is key here. Let's say that the COG team has won the first 8 rounds, but they won in overtime. The Swarm team may be thinking, oh, they only have 8, that's not too bad. But in this case, there's only 4 rounds left. If the Swarm team doesn't score 2 points in this next round, they're going to lose the match. Look at the scoreboard. If the Swarm team holds onto the flag and only scores 1 here, the score becomes 8-1. If the Swarm team then gets touchdowns in all of the remaining rounds, that's round 10, 11, and 12, they still only come out with 7 total points, and they're going to lose the match 8-7. This example may seem a bit extreme, and it really only occurs if there's a lot of overtime victories. As rare as that may seem though, things like this certainly do happen, and when it does happen, the little pop-up to tell you stuff like this is a really nice feature. Oh, and as a side note, that's where the 13 points to win comes from. If you score 13 points, it's literally impossible for the other team to get more than 10. So in actuality, the real way to win a match is just to have the highest score at the end of 12 rounds. The whole 13 points thing is kinda just cutting it off early once the opponent stands no more chance.
The kind of victory that will be studied in the annals for years.
Another semi-rare instance would be a tie game. There's 12 rounds, so a tie is possible with anything from 6-6 to 12-12. In the event of a tie, a 13th round sudden death will appear. Whoever wins this round, be it with 1 point or 2 points, will win the match. Hopefully you all found this helpful and maybe you learned a thing or two. This mode has been quite polarizing for the community. Some love it, and some hate it. I'm thinking I'm probably going to put together a more subjective look at the mode next. I'll talk about my thoughts, some common comments, and just some general discussion about the mode. Keep a lookout for that in the near future. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you online.